welcome or welcome back to me. Today, I wanted to talk about the Japanese Grand Prix that I attended. Specifically, I thought I would go through all of the planning we had to do, the costs, and how we made it happen, just in case there's anyone out there who would like a better idea of what kind of thing you need to keep in mind. I think it's always good to have a vague idea of what you're getting yourself into. Some of these things were a bit complicated, and it seemed that there were other people who were struggling. So hopefully after watching this video, if you plan on attending it, you will not have the same trouble. I'll go in order of what we did when. The first thing we did, of course, before planning anything else, was get tickets, because we weren't sure we would get any. There weren't really any assigned seating options available anymore when we were booking, because it was dependent on other travel plans. We ended up going with a general admission ticket. On Fridays, you can sit anywhere. It's kind of free for all, except if the person whose seat it is turns up, you need to give it up. But otherwise, you can kind of sit wherever you want. I assume there's not as many people attending on Fridays. That's was the impression I got over the day as well, but it was still quite busy. So I got to see a couple different options. I thought I would have a look just in case we ever get a chance to go again. And then on Saturday and Sunday, there's specific areas where you can sit, but mainly it's just not in the grandstands with assigned seating, and you can kind of sit everywhere else. Basically every spot at the track where you could have a view, there were people sitting there in camping chairs and things like that. So after we got the race tickets, we also booked the hotel. It was a bit tricky because obviously we were late, so most things were already booked or expensive. We looked, of course, in Suzuka because in that area, because obviously then you save yourself the travel costs every day you go. But it was about £400 per night, which if you go for a multi-day event, you do not want to spend that money. Or in any case. And Nagoya had similar prices as well. I think that's usually what's recommended too, because you can basically, Nagoya is north of Suzuka and you can just travel down by train. That also didn't feel like a great option anymore. So instead, I checked and there was a train going from Osaka to Shiroko, and then goes on to Nagoya. It's a bit of a trek. It's about, I think, an hour, 35 minutes if you get a direct train from Osaka Namba. So we ended up getting accommodation near that station and then went there, took the train from there to Shiroko, and then there is a shuttle bus that gets you to the track. But I'll get to that. A month before, because I think, this is my understanding, I might be wrong about this, so definitely do your research just in case. But we ended up being lucky because a couple days after I think the train tickets were released for that date, we actually booked, but some of them were already booked. So you do need to be quite quick. But yeah, I think in Japan, I don't know how many trains, or if it's all of them, that applies for, but I think you can only book them about a month in advance. So yeah, you need to make sure that you keep that kind of in mind. And we booked the trains on the Friday. We didn't have any issues. I think on Saturday and Sunday, we had some journeys where we needed to change trains, which was obviously annoying and stressful, but we managed. And even though we had pretty tight times, it was like 5 to 10 minutes usually, it went okay. And the only reason we tried that was because we were like, okay, Japan is known for having trains that are on time. Let's risk it. And it paid off, but it was stressful. On the train back, on the Sunday, the train was delayed, but then the follow-up train that we needed to catch was also delayed, so it was okay. And the way those trains work, and I don't know if there's any other option at least from Osaka to Shiroko, we got a limited express train, which works differently. So we had to book a seat. Additionally, we then had to tap in and out. If you're familiar with London public transport, it's the same in most places, I think. You have a Passmo, Suica, there's different cards that you can use that you charge with, I think you need to use cash to charge them. So you basically have 2 payments for each train journey, which is confusing in terms of pricing. For a reservation for one person for the limited express ticket for 3 days, so 6 different train journeys, it was 8,440 yen, which ends up as £42.20. For tapping in and out, we are not entirely sure because obviously it was paid in cash, kind of in bulk, and then you would tap. But I'm pretty sure it was 2,000 yen per journey, but not entirely sure about that one. For which train times to book, I would definitely recommend booking in a lot of time. On Friday, we left before the end of FP2 to get back in time, and it took us about an hour until we were back in Shiroko. And then on Saturday, we waited a long time for the bus. I think we waited over an hour. If you're not good on your feet, I think this might be a bit hard to do because you do a lot of walking through these like little mazes, and then we ended up sitting down on the floor. They give you kind of slots to walk into, and then you wait in your slot until your bus arrives, basically. It's very well organized, but it does take a long time. Qualifying ended at 4. I think we left the parking lot at 6, but obviously that includes walking there. That took a while. I think the bus journey itself is, I don't know, 15, 20 minutes? Not very long. I think our train on that day was at 7 p.m. and that worked well. And then on race day, we actually didn't end up taking the bus back after the experience from Saturday and knowing that there's even more people on track, obviously, for the race at the track. Not on the track, I would hope. We decided to just walk, which was about an hour 15. It was fine. Like, there were enough other people that we didn't have to continuously look up the journey. We could just kind of follow the masses. I think the race ended 20 to 4, quarter to 4, something like that. And then we ended up having a train at 8. We had a good amount of time left to wait. Like, we ended up getting food already and eating in the convenience store parking lot just because we didn't want to wait to get home at like 10:30, something ridiculous like that. Yeah, it does take a long time on race day. I think was the kind of worst. We also ended up getting a really early train, so we ended up leaving Osaka Namba at 6:40 because we had to have a change. We arrived at Shiroko station at 8:35, and I think we arrived at the track at about 10. Very exhausting days, but obviously well worth it. Things that you kind of just pay on the day off, as I've mentioned, there's a shuttle bus from Shiroko station to the track. It's 500 yen, and you basically just use your Suica and you can just tap 500 yen and you're good to go. That's for each journey, of course. For food, what we ended up doing is get like food and drinks, like electrolyte drinks, things like that, beforehand, before we left Osaka. And then we had breakfast on the train. And then at the track, we had like a lunch. And then on the way back on the train, we had dinner. I think the food at the track was priced okay. I only found one expense that I think was a food vendor, and that was for 2 people, £11, but the portions weren't huge. It worked for me. There were many different options. I didn't pay super close attention to whether they were like vegetarian, halal, kosher options, anything like that. I want to say there weren't many vegetarian, at least. Classic Japanese food, but there's also, I think I might have even seen kebab. I might have imagined that. I'm not sure. The merch seemed normal price, and by normal price I mean the same you would pay buying it online or in the UK. So I guess expensive is the correct word. We only bought one piece of merch, which was a Williams hat, and that was, I think, about £50. Yeah, it's kind of absurd, honestly. But I think that's just Formula 1 merch as a whole. I also did buy little souvenirs from the track itself. Just like little bits and bobs, and they weren't too pricey. I also didn't see all of the special merch. It was sold out by the time I got there, but some of it looked really cool. Other miscellaneous things, I've seen various degrees of preparedness. I've seen people with like hiking boots on and like camping chairs and things like that. I've seen people like even less prepared than we were. We brought raincoats, fortunately didn't need them. Brought sunscreen, definitely needed that. I kind of wished I had an umbrella. I don't even know if they're allowed on the track or like around the track, but it was really sunny, and where we were sitting there wasn't shade, so it was really warm, and I got a bit of a sunburn even though I reapplied sunscreen a couple times. Yeah, I think that's all. Here's approximately what we spent over the course of the 3-day weekend. We were there Friday through Sunday. I hope this was helpful, and if there's anything that I forgot to mention that you're curious about regarding attending the Japanese Grand Prix, please let me know. I'm by no means an expert, but I have experience of doing it once. I guess that counts for something. I hope if you're going that you have a wonderful time, and maybe I'll see you there. Bye bye.